Okay, folks, this is somewhat, I won't say it's an old story, but this is a story that broke almost a week ago today and went very much under the radar. But this ICJ case has kind of been one of our beats, and so we thought we should shine a light on this since most people missed it, including ourselves. So, scoop, this is from Axios. Israel asks Congress to press South Africa to drop ICJ genocide case. Israel is lobbying members of Congress to press South Africa to drop its legal proceedings in the International Court of Justice over the war in Gaza, according to an Israeli Foreign Ministry cable obtained by Axios. Why it matters. South Africa has until October 28th to give the top UN court its arguments for continuing the case against Israel over alleged violations of the Genocide Convention during the war in Gaza. Israeli officials say they want members of Congress to make clear to South Africa that there will be consequences for continuing to pursue the case. Israel hopes the new coalition government in South Africa will take a different approach to Israel and the war in Gaza, the officials said. South Africa will file its memorial to the ICJ in October and intends to provide facts and evidence to prove that Israel is committing the crime of genocide in Palestine, the South African presidency said in a statement on Tuesday. This case will continue until the court makes a finding. While the case is in progress, we hope that Israel will abide by the court's provisional orders issued to date, the statement continued. Behind the scenes, Israeli officials said the Israeli Foreign Ministry started a diplomatic campaign in recent weeks to press South Africa not to push forward with the case at the ICJ. The U.S. Congress is a main tool in the effort. On Monday, the Israeli Foreign Ministry sent a classified cable to the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., and to all Israeli consulates in the U.S. about South Africa's ICJ case. We are asking you to immediately work with lawmakers on the federal and state level, with governors and Jewish organizations to put pressure on South Africa to change its policy towards Israel and to make clear that continuing their current actions, like supporting Hamas, even though the ICC has issued an arrest warrant for Hamas leaders and for Netanyahu, different body, but the ICC is investigating both, and pushing anti-Israeli moves in international courts will come with a heavy price, the cable read. Zoom in. The Israeli diplomats were instructed to ask members of Congress to issue public statements condemning South Africa's actions against Israel and threaten that it could lead to suspending U.S. trade relations with South Africa. That's unlikely to happen because the U.S. wants to maintain its relationship with South Africa in order to counter the influence of Russia and China. The Israeli diplomats were also instructed to ask members of Congress and Jewish organizations in the U.S. to reach out directly to South African diplomats in the U.S. and make clear South Africa would pay a heavy price if it doesn't change its policy. Another path the Israeli diplomats were instructed to pursue was pushing legislation against South Africa on the state and federal levels that even if they won't materialize, presenting them and talking about them will be important in trying to influence South African policy. The Israeli Foreign Ministry asked diplomats to lobby for hearings about South Africa's policy towards Israel in state legislatures. The Israeli diplomats were also instructed to make their diplomatic activity regarding South Africa as public as possible in the U.S. press and on social media. The Israeli Foreign Ministry declined to comment. The South African embassy in Washington didn't respond to a request for comment. Final slide here, wrapping up the big picture. Last June, a new unprecedented multi-party coalition government was formed in South Africa after the ruling ANC party lost the majority it had for 30 years. According to the cable, Israeli diplomats were instructed to emphasize the message that the ANC has a chance to change course as part of the new government and pursue dialogue with Israel instead of boycotts and punishments. Well, there you have it. First of all, you cross out the word Israel and put Russia. This is a major scandal with indictments and investigations and round-the-clock news coverage. But that's not the world we live in. That's it right there. The fact that they're doing, because don't forget, folks, they could tell the ICJ to go get their fucking shine box. They're not like this is not going to result in any direct, immediate punitive measures. The reason they are in a tizzy about this to the point where they are exerting that level of influence is because, as we've been covering these past few weeks, the economic pressure is working. It is working. And that's why these rulings are important, because if they can force the UK to suspend certain weapon shipments for fear of violating international law, if, what was it? Was it a French bank had divested
Yeah.
from Israel?
Yeah. An investment bank. Yeah.
Yeah, if these institutions can start pulling back investment in Israel for fear of being entangled in international scandals vis-a-vis rulings like these, that's working, and that's why they're doing this. They're doing
Yeah.
this because they are feeling the pressure. So on the one
Right.
hand, you could say, well, with the US in its corner, what threat is the ICJ to the Israeli state? Well, there you have it. This all works to mount economic pressure on their state.
Exactly.
And that economic
Exactly.
pressure is having an impact. If it weren't, they wouldn't waste their time with this, because the ICJ is not going to shut them down like this. It's going to be a drip, 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 drip. We're going to be able to slow their economy down to a halt at this rate. And that is why they're worried. And that's why they're taking these measures.
Yeah, I believe it was AXA divested from Israel after a lot of effort from activists. There was also Scotiabank, I think, also divested about half of its holdings from Israel, not all of them yet. Also, Mondo Weiss did a great article getting into this. A lot of Israelis are pulling their money out of Israeli retirement accounts because they're afraid the state is not going to exist when they
Right.
retire, and they're putting their money elsewhere. So, yeah, you get an ICJ ruling. It also gives moral legitimacy to companies that may want to cede to activist pressure and just need a little more PR cover. Hey, well, the ICJ is, we can't do it. Um, so yeah, it's one more way to pressure companies not to do business with Israel.
Please clap.